Hey there, welcome to Synth Seeker. My name is Luke. Today we're going to talk about the end of the year. Yes, it's the end of the year video. Let's talk about what happened this year. We moved. We had rented an apartment just outside of Boston, and we rented that home. It was half of a house. We rented it because it was in a good school system and my wife was pregnant. We had our son. We raised him in that good school zone. That house was sold a year ago and we had to move. So we moved a little bit west of Boston to an area where the housing prices weren't insane. And it was closer to where I work as well. I have a day job. And so we moved out closer to work and bought a home. And that home contained an extra room that I have called my studio. Whereas if you look at the channel, my previous studio was a corner of our bedroom in a relatively small apartment. And so over the last year, all collections, regardless of whether you collect, if you collect synthesizers or Pokemon, it really doesn't matter. And so over the last year or so, new synths have come in, new effects, new toys. And I'm just going to reflect on my philosophy for the collection. But I don't talk much about collecting. I think because I feel guilty about it a little bit. You know, we are in a recession of sorts. You know, there was a recession a few years ago, and I'm just blessed that I've had this day job that, you know, facilitates taking care of my family and but also provides me a little extra. And so I don't talk about the collection a lot, but my goals with it is I love the idea of a virtual orchestra, right? And I don't mean for classical music, but I like the idea of being a conductor, of being a composer. And I like using my gear to basically control a bunch of virtual players. So I've got a room full of synthesizers, and it's all wired up to a computer. Looks a bit like this. But I like having a collection of instruments all connected to a single one or two control devices. In this case, I use an Ableton push, and I have a piano-style keyboard. And I use those to put my commands, my musical orders into the computer, and then build my music out of these voices that I have. And sometimes it's purely software, and sometimes it's hardware. And so the studio got some stands, the synth went on the stands, more synths came. I tend to have digital synths. I'd say 2/3 of them are digital or digital hybrids, because I have a personal problem with tuning. I can't stand synths that won't stay in tune generally. I have a very low tolerance for how out of tune I'm willing to let them get. So all of those synths that have the ability to, dial in that vintage feel and go out of tune intentionally, oh, I hate that. It sucks. So the majority of my collection is digital. I have a few analog pieces, and for whatever reason, all the analog synths I have are Moog synths, and everything else is pretty much digital. Collecting is something that I struggle with. There's a collector side of me, and there is a music production side of me, and I think my soul wants to make music, but my brain, and my hindbrain certainly, wants to collect synthesizers. So there's always a struggle between the hype of the new thing versus, is this going to work for the music production that I do? And when I'm discussing online with friends in Discord or various forums, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I want to talk about social media and forums and community. But when talking with people, I find myself trying to be helpful as a music producer, but it's also really fun to be devil's advocate and be the collector. It's sort of like someone described me earlier this week as a gear pusher. And that's very true. And I willingly leap into that role, gleefully leap into that role because it's fun. But like I said at the beginning of this little section, it's tough sometimes. I feel a little guilty because so many people are struggling. Gear is a luxury item. It is not a necessity. Now, some people will get real passionate and say, yes, my musical outlet, my creativity is absolutely a necessity in my life, and I must buy gear to feed that need. Okay, if you feel so strongly, I'm not going to argue with you. But from my perspective, buying a synthesizer is a luxury item. You don't choose synth over food or choose synth over, school for your children or something like that. But if you don't have any children and you're single, have at it. There's a lot of single males in the music production community who are starving, but they got great gear. And if you can walk that line, go for it. Collecting is a side effect of making music for me, maybe not for everyone. So it has been said that the larger your collection, the less music you make. And I have found this to be true to a degree. I don't think those two things are necessarily directly related, because human behavior and your tendency towards distraction and procrastination plays a big part of that. If you're working inside the box and you've got every synth, digital virtual synth available and every effect available, all the VSTs, it is said that you have, too much choice available and therefore you get nothing done because you can't make a decision or you're constantly distracted. That's true for some people. It isn't true for everyone, because there are extremely productive people who have all the things. And yet they're still extremely productive, right? So there are certainly cases where the amount of things you have is irrelevant to how productive you are. And that comes down to you. So do your own analysis of yourself. Don't compare yourself to other people, and just set goals for you based on previous behavior. That's how I look at it. So when I first started making music, I had one synth and a copy of Cakewalk. Now I have more than 10 synths and I'm using Ableton. I would say my rate of releasing things is the same. I'm just slow. I went through a stint where I was working in a tracker, for 2 years. I released 2 pieces, 2 songs, I should say. And I'm just work slowly. Anyway, so that's that tangent. I don't necessarily agree with having more stuff means less productivity. I think it can, but I don't think it's a direct cause. There's just, humans are complicated, life is complicated. Anyway, that's sort of my thoughts on collecting. The collector in me is separate from the producer, but the collector is a lot of fun. So. Community, social media, all of the platforms, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all the places, YouTube, anything else. So I have an Instagram account, I have a Twitter account, I have a YouTube channel. If you want my stuff, videos and the content and the interaction, go to YouTube. And if you really want more, come to Discord. If you just want my music, go to Bandcamp. If you want my orphaned experiments, go to SoundCloud. And really that's it. I post things to Instagram like twice a year. I post things to Twitter by accident generally, because all the platforms are getting integrated. So eventually without my actual active participation, when I post something, a piece of music somewhere, it will eventually get to maybe Twitter and Instagram by accident. So I don't generally post to those places. If you follow me on Twitter or Instagram, I apologize for abandoning you, sort of, or having almost no content, because I just don't care about those platforms, because I'm not trying to get famous or rich or blow up. I'm just not. If I wanted to do that, I would, post a bunch of gear reviews and be zany and a clown, because that's, where I'm kind of gravitating towards anyway, right? I'm a bit of a clown anyway. They're just not my thing. So social media, meh. If you go to my Facebook page, it's just postings of food, pets, and family. So come to YouTube, interact in the comments, or join the Discord, or join one of the Discords that I hang out on. Some of them are free. Again, links in the description. The community on the internet of synthesizer nerds is a bunch of islands. They're not all, some of them are close together and a little connected, and some of them are not. And there's so many of these islands. For every one I find, there's 10 more that I, make note of, but don't actively go to that island and visit because I don't have time. Or what I look for is a particular kind of community that resonates with my artistic interests. The island of music producers who are hip-hop producers. It's not really my thing. My exposure to music that isn't from the 1970s is relatively thin. I don't listen to the radio. I generally don't listen to pop music. all the popular music that enters my home through my wife. Taylor Swift is very prominent in rotation on the stereo in our home. And there's nothing wrong with that. For a long time, all of the music my wife listened, I shouldn't say all, that's a great percentage of the music my wife listened to was music that was shown to her on talk shows like Ellen DeGeneres. And there's nothing wrong with that. Your musical inlets to your ears, are whatever they are, what you hear on the radio, what's popular on, Facebook or social media, or what the media outlets say is popular. But I don't listen to a lot of that, and I'm not aloof or anything. I like what I like. I read somewhere that our musical tastes and preferences are sort of set, not permanently, but strongly set as far as direction early in our lives. And by the time you're in your 20s, your island has formed around you, your island of taste. I started music as a bass player. I like prog rock. I like Yes. I like Rush, Kansas, Genesis, all of the 70s and 80s prog bands. And I like all of the things that are derivative of that as well, but I don't pay attention. And, it's an exponentially expanding list. It's not that those bands, existed in the past and then disappeared, right? There are evolutions of that music happening every day. Martin Sturzer, a prominent artist that's doing something interesting with it, right? But I don't actively listen to him. Might be heresy. People drop my channel because you don't listen to Martin. Oh my God. I just don't. When he publishes a video, I'll take a peek at it. And I certainly will play, like if I'm rearranging the studio or rewiring something and I need a little background music and I want Berlin School, it's a 50-50 chance whether I listen to new artists or whether I listen to old favorites. And I think that's okay. My tastes are in that vein. I gravitate in that direction. I listen to lots of other things, and I listen to Taylor Swift too. Some of that stuff's really catchy, but not in the studio. Sorry, Taylor. Okay, so going back to the island metaphor. Over the last year, I've discovered a bunch of these islands. I was always looking, right? But my my strategy for finding islands that I like is, the internet is effectively infinite for the level of effort I'll put into searching it. If you narrow down your search criteria for communities that perfectly fit what you want, as close to my interests, right? This is going to sound bad, but basically I'm looking for a bunch of people who are basically me to talk to. And it's not because I'm self-centric, it's because I want to talk about the things that I'm passionate about with other people who share that passion, right? So I'm looking for people that are interested in the same things I'm interested in, right? So if I carry that to an absurd extreme, I say, I'm looking for a bunch of me's. And that sounds bad, but honestly, think about your closest friends. Some of them may be the polar opposite of you, but I bet a bunch of them are very similar to you, similar in sense of humor, similar in interests, similar in hobbies or passions. But in searching for communities, I will taste a lot of communities. I'll visit briefly, look around and say like, this is this is an NPC-based community. Well, I'm not an NPC guy, so I wish you well. I'll talk to you later, right? I'll go home and say, this is a guitar place. It's full of, guys who are basically talking about tone and arguing about Kempers versus, amps. That can be super entertaining, but it's not my bag. So thanks, and I'll talk to you later. I wish you well. And this year I found a number of communities that I've really sort of resonated with and enjoyed. One of them was, I think the first and foremost one was the Midlife Synthesist community. All of the links to these communities will be in the description. The Midlife Synthesist is a fun guy. I think he's a kindred spirit who grew up on the other side of the planet almost. Certainly the other hemisphere. We share the same birthday, which I think I've mentioned in a previous video, which was kind of an interesting thing. But he's another, dad who has a career who is obsessed with synthesizers, right? There's some echoes that sort of resonate with me. And he's got an interesting community around his, he has a YouTube channel. And he makes music, he releases music that is quite good. That's one that I found that I really enjoyed. Another one that I found that I enjoyed is the Signal Music Studios one. That is a YouTube channel really I discovered because I was searching for understanding of music theory. And that Jake Lizzo, I think Lizzo is how you pronounce his last name. He himself it's a large channel and he's busy. And I think YouTubers who reach a certain size simply can't respond to and form relationships with their viewership. And his channel is quite large. But I went to his Discord, and we'll talk about Discords in a bit. I went to his Discord and met an amazing group of people who cross a pretty broad spectrum. They're all there for learning purposes, I think, for the most part. And whenever you get into a community where learning is the focus, you have an interesting dynamic between people who show up who know their shit and want to teach it, and people who are seekers who want to understand it. And the Signal Music Studios community, their Discord community, is basically a living, breathing engine of people who want to teach, people who want to understand what the channel content is from Jake, and people who want to learn that stuff. And you have this great dynamic of people who want to help people learn and understand, and then people who are eager to consume that. So I met some people in there that are just really awesome. And some of them are synth nerds, right? So the resonance there is really high. Not so much with the guitar guys, sorry. But so we discovered that community. So that's two. The third one would be, there's a couple more. There's a YouTuber / music producer called Venus Theory who has a very good Discord community as well. That particular island is pretty large, and when you get into, it's sort of centered around music production. And one of the problems I have with music production islands in the community is that the bar for entry into music production is really low thanks to technology. And I think that's the best thing ever. And I want everyone to become a music producer. But the signal to noise ratio can be pretty low in communities like that, because there's a constant flood of people coming in and, asking questions that are the same questions get asked all the time. And then you get old farts who are like, read the fucking manual, of which I am guilty, but I try and do it in a kindly way, in a teaching way, as opposed to a shut up kid, sort of way. There's that sort of dynamic going on, and it drives the signal to noise ratio down, right? It's hard to find things that truly hold my interest when I'm in there. And I've met some people in there who, like I said, resonate with me, middle-aged dads with careers who are into synthesizers. There's a bunch of that there. I think Venus Theory might be heading in that direction because he's not quite middle-aged, and I don't think he has any children, although he has pets, and that counts. Fur babies are totally children. But that's another good community that I discovered, and I still, visit it every other day or so. I've met some people and formed some connections there. So an island of music production. Off of that, I ran into a community, another island centered around mostly ambient music, and it's a Discord tied to a label called Synphaera, another fairly large Discord community that is, by its inherent focus on ambient music, it's very, very much a synthesizer community. And because ambient music is sort of old, I think the median age for this particular community is sort of up there towards my zone, right? It's the Salt and Pepper Club. That has been a community that I've really enjoyed being a part of, and the people in it are engaging and a good mix. And finally, I discovered the Freebeat YouTube channel and community on Discord, and I have to say that is a real eye-opener. Well, maybe not eye-opener, but it's a really great reminder of the newness and sort of all of the stumbling blocks and technical details and things that after you've been, working in a studio for 30 years, working in a studio meaning having a home studio, you forget what it's like to be exploring at the very beginning. In this community, you're all really sort of pioneers. They have the pioneering attitude of saying, okay, we're interested in this music technology. We may or may not have a lot of experience working with music and making music with electronics, synthesizers, computers, things like that. It's a very vibrant community full of people who are trying new things every day. And, and it's not about gear hype. It's about sharing, your experience and what you've made. It's probably like the most maker space oriented music Discord community that I've run into. And again, the relationships I'm sort of starting to form with people there are really, great and really endearing. I don't know. There's the fourth one I've been hanging out on. Maybe I'll see you there. And so I've discovered those this year, and it's been a good year from a social perspective. I'm trying to come to grips with, coming out of the pandemic and not seeing humans. I sort of latched on to Discord as a good community, a good human interface of sorts, right? A way at least to interact with other humans. And that's been going pretty well. So I've brought my brand of synth obsession to these areas and either contributed in a good way or been disruptive. But if any of you who are listening to this live in those communities, just know that I really enjoyed my time in there, and I look forward to spending more time in those communities as we go forward. As far as my own sort of circle, my channel has been growing very, very rapidly this year, relatively speaking. The graph looks like this. Now, this graph is generated by the YouTube administrative channel software, certainly skewed in a way to present data in a way that makes the channel owner excited to make more content. But long ago, I came to grips with the idea that I have a day job. I'm not a YouTuber as a career. I never plan on being a YouTuber as a career. My channel is really, like my music, just an archive of discussions and interesting and hopefully entertaining little videos that when I'm dead, they'll remain and just be a record that I was here. And I'm just going to keep making them. And I'm not on a hard production schedule. I don't say I got to crank out 2 videos a week. I don't do that. I put out a video when I think I have something interesting to share. My videos are not tailored to any community. They are tailored to myself. I am probably the person who generates the most clicks on my own videos because I actually go back and rewatch them. I go back and rewatch my own videos probably because I like the sound of my voice, but I go back because I want to remind myself of things I discovered in the past and reuse those techniques and ideas, right? I tend to put videos out about my own discoveries in the music making realm and, tips and ideas that I had fun with. Well, I go back and look at those periodically because there's a lot out there, and the depth and breadth of music production is an ocean of ideas. And so I go and I get on YouTube and I look for new ideas and things that I can learn from other people. But I also look at my own stuff to remind myself, hey, remember this tool that you built? It's still in your folder. You haven't used it in 2 years. Maybe you should try it again and see if the technology or application of it has changed, or if you can use it in a new way. And so I make videos for me as a record. You could almost say every video I make is a production log. It's a log of the ideas and discoveries I'm making as I'm building out some music. And to that end, because I'm not targeting anyone other than myself, what's happening, I think, is that the people who are subscribing and watching, staying around, are people who quite literally share very closely my own interests. It's like I make the video because it entertains me. Okay, well, if you find the video entertaining, something about your needs and experiences resonates with my own or is aligned with my own. And my experience has been, if our interests align in that tightly, we can probably be friends. So to that end, the channel has been growing, and the people who are watching the videos are easy for me to get along with. They're funny. I'm not saying I'm funny. I find that their sense of humor and mine, sort of work together. The combination of, sarcasm and dirty jokes works, right? um, and I learned a few things this year in these various Discord servers. When I was looking at these islands of community, I've discovered that the ones I like the most, believe it or not, are the ones that have a gate. And I don't mean this like gatekeeping. And I put out a video on this. I mean that you can set up a Discord server so that the only way you can access it is if they pay you. Using Patreon. I think Discord offers something direct at this point. They've added that feature. But several Discord communities I'm in for synthesizers have a gate in that you have to contribute at least, $1 a month in order to be a part of their Discord. And what I found is those communities have a very high signal to noise ratio. Like the interesting discussion going on there is very high because the people who are there want to be there. They're willing to open like the most holy place of places we have, our wallet, and donate money to the channel or the creator in order to access the discussion. And that makes the discussion have a value to everyone involved. Maybe a very low value, but there's a value there. And what that does is it filters out the people who don't care enough about the discussion to open that wallet up. So I'd say half of the Discords I'm on are Discords you have to pay to access. And it's a nominal thing. It's usually like $1 a month, right? If you can afford $1 a month to join a community, you could certainly get that value back out of there. That's my feeling. And so earlier this year, I did the same thing, completely blind to, I didn't say, should I do this? I didn't say, I might have asked one or two people, but it was literally, you know what? I'm going to set up a Patreon. I'm going to set up a Discord server. You pay me $1 a month. You can join my little club and my community of Synth Seekers. And we're just going to have a place to privately discuss our interests. And when I set it up, I won't say took off, but a certain number of folks jumped in. And they were people I had already been talking with in comments on other Discord servers. I didn't poach them. I didn't say, okay, here's this new server on all these other places, come join my stuff. I didn't do that, but they just showed up. And the Synth Seeker Discord is really a place to do many things that are common to all of the Discord islands out there, right? Post pictures of your pets and your family and your synthesizers, your gear in your studio. Share that stuff. Crow a little bit about your accomplishments. Share the music you made. Share things you're working on. But in the Synth Seeker space, it's ask questions and share answers, right? I'm not sitting there like a sage on the stage going, okay, children, here is the lesson for today. You may now learn from me. That's not what it's about. It's not the role I'm trying to be. It's, if you have an idea that really turns your gears, share it. If you have a piece of music that you've made, let's say you're early in your music making sort of path and you're bashful, right? You're unsure, right? Imposter syndrome is something that is prevalent a lot. People are like, I made this, but I feel like I shouldn't, share it because I can't possibly be good enough. How can I have made this thing? I think imposter syndrome is like the worst possible mind state to be in. But anyway, we'll get better. The Discord is really, it tries to be a haven for people who are like me, who share my interests and my sense of humor, and they want to meet other people that are like us, right? The me becomes an us. And that's the goal. So I set that up. It's going well. It's growing like the channel slowly. I don't hawk it. I don't, pitch it in every video. I made one video talking about why I made it. There's links to it in all the descriptions and stuff. But I don't really call it out. It's nice. The community that formed there are, I'm going to call them friends, at least the ones who are active. In any system that has users, there's a percentage, probably a larger percentage, maybe more than half of the users who sign up and then forget they signed up. And then there's a collection of people who are there at some interval to share what they've done and see what other people have done. And then active part of the community. And we've developed a very nice little active community. And I hope all of you watch this video, at least as I said at the beginning, if you saw the notes, are listening, I talk kind of slowly, so I bet all of you are listening to this at 1.25, times speed, or 1.5 maybe. I'm looking at you, Haslo. I like you guys, and I appreciate that you're here, and I'm glad that you are contributing to what I feel is a good community. And it's funny, I interact with a lot of you on other communities as well, and that is also awesome. So we're sort of like roots growing through all of the islands, connecting them a little bit. You see common faces across certain servers because because the circle of interests overlap. The Venn diagram of synth nerdery, moves from server to server, so you see similar faces from place to place, and that's okay. For those of you who are contributing in any island of synthesizer community that I inhabit, just know that I like your virtual face, and I want to continue to see it. Getting a little heartfelt here. I better stop. Got to maintain my persona of iron will stoicism. I'm the Roy Kent of synthesizers. Play with electronic toys, and I'm always angry. No, that's not my persona. I think this might be enough rambling. I wanted to talk about the studio, the collection. I wanted to talk a little bit about community. And then for 2023, what's going on? Well, let's see. My health is improving. I don't make a big issue of it, but I'm getting old. And over the last year, a few things broke inside me that are slowly mending. And it will continue to mend. I'm going to continue to buy synthesizers. I have a few racks left on the Jasper stands that are empty. So those will probably get filled. This holiday season was the season of cheap-ass pedals. There are many different manufacturers who are putting out guitar pedals, effects pedals that are pretty good quality at absurdly low prices. $25, $30, $35 for, a multifunction modulation effect pedal. Amazing, right? So my stocking this year was full of $25 guitar pedals. And so those are all moved into the studio now, and I'm playing with, right now I'm going through a bunch of different distortions, trying to understand how they work and how they work in relation to synthesizers and how to get the most out of them. And what sort of sound design hoops do you have to jump through to really get the interesting set of sounds out of a distortion pedal? It's interesting because guitar, as much as we like synths, and there's a lot of guitar hate in the synth world. I should say a lot, but there is. Guitars are evil. Guitars are a boomer thing. Don't mess with guitars. Go with your synths. I read just a couple days ago, someone was saying, that VST is like a boomer VST. It's really about, boomers who want to get that awesome guitar tone, but it's not for people who want to make face-melting bass, was the quote. Face-melting bass. I had to ask him, what's face-melting bass? Could you give me an example? Because technically my father is the boomer. I like 70s and 80s music, so I guess that might make me a boomer from a music production standpoint, but I wasn't sure what he meant. So he gave me some examples. And it was excellent music, by the way. It was really good. It sounded like, reminded me a lot of, here's another old throwback. It reminded me of the soundtrack to Quake 3 Arena. But anyway, so there's a bunch of things when you're running a synthesizer through a distortion pedal that you want to consider in your sound design. But I'm doing a video on that in a little bit. So you'll see that in a few days. But yeah, so this year was the year of pedals. So I have some racks, I have some space for on the pedal board and things like that, and we'll continue to grow. My most recent acquisition was a Mini Moog Model D reissue from 2022, which I did a couple videos on, which were by far my most successful videos. So, if I ever really wanted to succeed, I would just become a gear review channel. But that's just not going to happen. Sorry if that's what you want me to do. I just don't do gear reviews very much. It doesn't interest me. So, but I did get a Model D, and I am going to do one more video on the Model D, not to drive views, but because I've been using it a lot. It's the greatest synthesizer I've ever played. So there's a quote. I'll post your hot takes right now. And I'm considering buying one of the clones just so that I can compare not the sound, but the experience of using it, because that's what's driving my passion for the Model D. Using it is most pleasurable experience with a synthesizer I've ever had. Now, confirmation bias is 100% a thing, and this is the most recent shiny object that's come into my studio. And I know historically my own internal pattern is whatever's newest is the best thing. So I'm going to sit on it, and we're going to let it continue to cook for a bit. And maybe I'll get a synth or two in over the next, 3 to 6 months, that they'll become the new thing. And we'll see if I still feel that way about the Model D. Anyway, we'll see where we're at. But I should probably wrap this up. I'm going to have to edit down. I'm at probably nearly an hour of talking at this point. I will close it down. That's all. I just want to say thank you all as the year closes out. My impending anniversary is going to hold my attention for the next couple of days, and then I'll be back making some more videos and music. I appreciate all of you, the friends I've made, the people who are contributing both to my Discord and just to the islands out there in general, all of the island denizens that orbit around the interests that I share with you. You guys, I really appreciate you, and I wish you all well. I wish you all happiness and health. Ideally, a life that has moments of peace and ease, things that I think we all need. Keep making music, keep sharing it, keep seeking those synths, right? Call back to the channel. Thank you for your time. My name's Luke. I will talk to you in 2023. See you later.